The city was alive with its usual chaos, a symphony of car horns, distant chatter, and the hurried steps of people chasing their dreams or simply surviving another day. In the midst of this bustling rhythm, a young boy stood by the side of the road. His clothes were faded, patched, and far from fitting properly. On his head, tilted slightly as if defying the world, was a worn red MAGA hat. It was a peculiar sight, not because of the hat itself, but because of the determination that glimmered in his eyes, a contrast to his otherwise disheveled appearance. He held a cardboard sign in one hand, its edges softened by time and weather. The message was simple: "We'll work hard for a chance." There was no plea for pity or money, just an offer, a bold declaration that even in the face of adversity, he was willing to earn his place. Passers-by glanced at him, some with disdain, others with indifference. A few snapped pictures, perhaps to post online with captions that ranged from mocking to sympathetic. Yet, the boy stood firm, unmoved by the swirling judgments around him. That morning, a sleek Tesla drove down the street, its silent engine a whisper in the cacophony. Inside, Elon Musk sat quietly, his mind always orbiting a galaxy of ideas. His day had been packed with meetings, deadlines, and the unrelenting pressure of being one of the world's most influential men. But as his car slowed at a red light, his eyes caught sight of the boy. It wasn't the sign that intrigued him, nor was it the boy's apparent poverty. It was the fire in his eyes, an unmistakable spark that resonated deeply with Elon. It was a look he had seen before, many years ago, in the mirror of his own tiny apartment when he was a struggling entrepreneur trying to make ends meet. Elon leaned forward and instructed his driver to stop. The boy, noticing the sleek car and its famous occupant, straightened his back. He had seen Musk on countless screens and articles but never imagined he would meet him, let alone under these circumstances. Elon stepped out of the car, his presence commanding but not intimidating. "What's your name, kid?" he asked, his voice carrying both curiosity and a hint of challenge. "James," the boy replied, his voice steady despite the situation. "James Carter." "What's with the sign?" Elon gestured to the cardboard. James hesitated for a moment, then replied, "I don't want handouts. I want a chance to prove myself." Elon raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the boy's candor. "And the hat?" he asked, a faint smile playing on his lips. James shrugged. "It's just a hat. People judge me for it, but I don't care. It's what I do that matters." The light turned green, and cars began honking impatiently. Elon ignored them, his attention fully on James. Without another word, he nodded and motioned for James to get into the car. Confused but hopeful, James grabbed his belongings and climbed in, leaving behind the street corner that had been his station for weeks. As the car pulled away, James couldn't help but glance back at the spot where he had stood. He didn't know where this ride would take him, but for the first time in a long time, he felt that his life was about to change. Little did he know, the man sitting beside him wasn't just offering him a ride, he was offering him a future. The car hummed smoothly as it glided through the city, its sleek design and quiet engine making it seem like a futuristic vessel. James sat beside Elon Musk, his mind racing as the world outside blurred past. The moment still felt surreal, as if he were in some kind of dream. 1 minute, he was standing on the side of the road, struggling to survive, and the next, he was sitting in the passenger seat of one of the world's most famous innovators. Elon glanced over at him, sensing the boy's unease. He knew the discomfort of being out of place, of being thrust into an unfamiliar world that seemed impossibly distant from everything you had ever known. But that unease was something Elon had come to see as an opportunity, a signal that the person sitting beside him had the potential for change, for growth. What do you want to do, James? Elon asked, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but there was an intensity in it, as if he wasn't just asking to pass the time but rather searching for something deeper. James shifted in his seat, unsure of how to answer. In truth, he didn't know what he wanted to do. For so long, his days had been consumed by survival, finding enough to eat, a place to sleep, and avoiding the judgment of others. The idea of wanting something more, of having a dream that wasn't just a day-to-day escape from his circumstances, was foreign. But now, in the presence of someone who had defied all odds, who had shaped the world with his vision, James felt a flicker of hope. I don't know. I never really thought about it that much, James admitted, his voice quieter now. I've just been trying to get by. Elon nodded as if he understood completely. Everyone starts somewhere, he said thoughtfully. But getting by isn't enough, James. You need to find something that excites you, something that makes you get up in the morning and want to make a difference. And that's not just about money or fame. It's about purpose. James looked out the window, letting Elon's words sink in. For the first time, he started to wonder what he could do, what he could offer the world. Could he ever be like Elon? Could he have a future beyond the street corner he had called home for so long? The car pulled into a sprawling building, a modern structure with glass walls that reflected the city's skyline. Elon's company headquarters. James had heard of it. Of course he'd heard of Tesla, SpaceX, and all the groundbreaking innovations that Elon Musk had pioneered. It seemed like a place for people with incredible ideas, people who had spent years in school, working tirelessly to climb the ladder of success. People who weren't like him. But as they walked through the lobby, Elon turned to him and said, "I'm going to give you a chance, James. A real one. But it's up to you to take it." They reached a conference room where a few people were already waiting: engineers, designers, and managers. James suddenly felt a wave of nervousness wash over him. He wasn't prepared for this. He didn't have any skills. He had no degree, no connections, nothing to offer except for his willingness to work hard. But Elon seemed to sense his hesitation. "Relax," Elon said with a reassuring smile. "You're here because I see something in you. There's something about your attitude, the way you think, the way you don't give up. That's the kind of person we need. Not the one who's already been through all the training, but the one who's willing to learn and work for what they believe in." James was handed a simple task: to assist with a small project in the research and development department. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. Elon had faith in him, and that meant something. It meant everything. The first few days were overwhelming. James had never been surrounded by so many smart, successful people. But with each passing moment, he felt himself growing. He learned how to use the tools, how to collaborate with others, and how to think outside the box. At first, it was hard. He made mistakes, and he questioned whether he truly belonged. But Elon's words echoed in his mind: "It's not about getting it right the first time. It's about getting back up every time you fall." And so, he did. He kept going. Even when the pressure felt too much, even when the work seemed too complicated, James pushed forward. He began to feel the shift within himself, the slow, steady transformation from the boy who had only known survival to the man who was starting to believe he could create, contribute, and thrive. Weeks passed, and James found his rhythm. He wasn't just working for the paycheck anymore, he was working for something much greater: his future. His chance. And it was all because a man who had built a world-changing empire had seen something in him, something that no one else had bothered to look for. Months had passed since that life-altering day when James had climbed into Elon Musk's car. He had become a fixture at the company, not as a bystander or a charity case, but as an integral part of the team. James had embraced his new role with a fierce determination, working tirelessly to prove that the opportunity Elon had given him wasn't misplaced. It wasn't easy. There were days when he doubted himself, when the weight of the corporate world seemed overwhelming. There were times when he felt like an outsider, a kid from the streets who didn't belong in a high-tech world of billion-dollar ideas. But then he would remember the simple yet profound words Elon had spoken to him that day: "You're here because I see something in you. It's up to you to take it." Those words became his mantra. Every time he faced a challenge, every time he stumbled, he reminded himself that he had been given a chance, a rare, precious chance. And he was going to make the most of it. One day, Elon approached James with an unusual proposition. He was in the middle of a brainstorming session for a new project, one that had the potential to change the way the world approached renewable energy. The company had been working on a new prototype, something that would revolutionize solar energy storage. But they were stuck. The engineers were hitting a wall, and despite all the expertise in the room, they couldn't seem to break through. "James," Elon said, calling him into the conference room, "we're at a standstill. I want you to take a look at this. See if you can come up with something." James's heart raced. This was it. The moment he had been working for. He walked into the room, feeling the eyes of the team on him. He was the outsider, the one who had no formal training, no fancy degree. But the only thing he had learned in the past months was that if you worked hard enough and stayed persistent, you could break through any barrier. He sat at the table, studying the project details, the diagrams, the calculations. The engineers had been focused on the technical aspects, looking for the perfect solution in the data. But James saw something else. He saw the human side, the need for simplicity, for a design that was both efficient and scalable, something that could be implemented quickly and have an immediate impact. After hours of working, James came up with a new approach. It wasn't a radical overhaul, but a fresh perspective that addressed the issue from a different angle. He presented it to the team with a confidence he didn't know he had. To his surprise, Elon smiled. "This is exactly what we needed, James. Simple, effective, and forward-thinking. We're going to move forward with it." The team was stunned. The kid who had been standing on the street corner just months ago had just provided the breakthrough they'd been searching for. In that moment, James realized something crucial. The skills, the knowledge, and the training could be learned, but the true value came from a willingness to think differently, to see beyond the obvious, and to never stop believing in your own potential. From that point on, James's role within the company expanded. He worked alongside the brightest minds in the field, contributing to innovations that would shape the future. He wasn't just a survivor anymore, he was a creator, a problem solver, someone who had found his place in the world. And through it all, Elon remained a mentor, a guiding force. He never let James forget the journey that had brought him here, always reminding him that success wasn't about where you started, but about where you were willing to go. Years later, James would look back on that pivotal moment, the day he stood on the street corner with his MAGA hat and cardboard sign, and marvel at how far he had come. He wasn't just a boy who had been hired by Elon Musk. He had become a symbol of the power of second chances, of what could happen when someone believed in you before you even believed in yourself. As he stood in the same room with Elon, discussing the next big idea, he realized that this was no longer a dream. It was his reality. And it all started with one man seeing beyond the surface, looking deeper into the soul of a boy who simply wanted a chance. It wasn't just the opportunity that changed everything. It was the belief. The belief that anyone, no matter where they came from, could rise above their circumstances and create something extraordinary. And James, now a testament to that truth, would never forget the life-changing encounter that had started it all.